What if the force of attraction worked not just on people, but on objects themselves? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the universe had quietly rewritten its laws. It started small, subtle enough that most ignored it. A pen sliding closer to your notebook, coins clumping together in your pocket, shoes sticking faintly to the doormat. At first, people laughed it off: static electricity, bad luck, a trick of the mind. But by the end of the week, it was undeniable: objects were pulling toward each other, driven by some invisible hunger. Keys fused together in drawers, cutlery clumped into metallic nests, and phones refused to sit still on desks. Scientists rushed to explain, but none of their theories made sense. This wasn't magnetism, it wasn't gravity, it was attraction. Objects weren't just touching, they were craving each other. Metal longed for metal, wood reached for wood, glass found glass, even plastic sought its kin. At first, people tried to adapt. Stores sold anti-attraction containers, office workers tethered pens to strings, families bolted furniture to the floor. But the pull grew stronger every day. Cars began veering off roads, drawn into metallic tangles like nightmarish junkyards in motion. Skyscrapers shuddered as steel beams deep inside yearned toward each other, bending like bones under invisible hands. Then came the horrifying realization: the force didn't just work within single categories of objects, it evolved. Metal pulled wood, glass clung to plastic, stone yearned for cloth. Entire houses started folding inward, crushing themselves like paper balls. People found their belongings merging into grotesque sculptures, beds fused into refrigerators, mirrors melded with doors, televisions sank into tables. Cities began to look like twisted museums of melted matter. Panic spread, but there was nowhere to run. Planes fell from the skies, their pieces seeking each other midair, crashing into dense heaps of fused debris. Trains compressed into metallic cylinders, crushing passengers between welded seats and twisted rails. Ships collapsed into floating knots of steel and wood, dragged under by their own collapsing structure. And then came the most terrifying discovery of all: humans weren't immune. Our clothes, our jewelry, even the fillings in our teeth began to betray us. People who wore too much metal found themselves pinned against lampposts or sucked into cars. Hospitals overflowed with victims. Bones snapped as belts tightened into steel walls or zippers tore toward fences. And when enough objects clustered together, they didn't stop. The attraction spread into flesh, blood, bone. Skin longed for skin, muscle pulled toward muscle. Whole crowds collapsed into each other, fusing into screaming, living masses. Governments collapsed in weeks. Leaders fled their capitals, only to be devoured by their own armored convoys. Entire cities imploded, their skyscrapers and citizens compressed into horrific, pulsating spheres of matter, like giant tumors rising from the earth. Satellites showed strange shapes across the continents, immense knots of fused objects and human remains, pulling in everything around them like gravitational monsters. The last survivors tried to live naked, without possessions, in caves far from cities. But even then, nothing was safe. Rocks longed for rocks, trees pulled into each other until forests became twisted cages of wood, rivers clogged with collapsed bridges, dead fish, and boats squeezed into balls. And in the silence that followed, the truth became clear: the force of attraction had always been inside us, waiting. We had spent centuries worshipping possessions, binding our identities to things, measuring ourselves by what we owned. Now the world had taken us at our word. The final broadcast came from a lone scientist in a collapsing lab. His voice shook as the walls bent inward, shelves grinding closer, his equipment merging into a metallic beast behind him. He said, "We thought attraction was about love, desire, connection. But what if attraction is just destruction wearing a mask? What if everything we built was destined to consume us?" His screen flickered, and in the last frame, the lab folded in on itself, the man vanishing into the crushing embrace of his own machines. And then there was silence. No more broadcasts, no more cities, just the earth itself, groaning as continents pulled toward each other, mountains collapsing into valleys, oceans folding into themselves, a planet compressing, tightening, suffocating under the weight of its own desire. And in that final, unbearable moment, as the world shrank into a pulsing, silent sphere, one thought remained: attraction, unchecked, is not connection. It is the death of all separation, the end of individuality, the erasure of choice. It is the hunger of the universe to consume itself. So next time you pick up your phone, or your keys slide across the table, ask yourself, what if they're not moving by accident? What if, deep down, Everything you own is just waiting to crush you? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, it's easy for you, and this will help me grow the channel so I can release new videos.